Just saw Dune. It's like one long, sandy sci-fi HJ that never ends. But is that good or bad? Let's discuss. Welcome to Movie World, the place where we only talk movies. I'm Andy Signor, and yes, I'm here to review Dune. Now, let me put this out right away. This film is gorgeous. I'm a massive fan of Denis Villeneuve. Even when I say the name, I feel fancy. He's just become an auteur that I feel like has earned his place. He can do what he wants, and he's doing what he wants. But I have to say, I have a big suspicion that I would not like this book. It's very dense. It's very high in itself. I do respect it. I know a lot of Dune fans will get mad at me, but I'm just showing my cards right at the beginning of this review. So if you don't like that opinion, just dip out now. I don't care. Look, I can just tell I wouldn't like the book. And I talked to people at the end watching who've read the book. Like, the book is so complicated. There's so much there. I appreciate Denis Villeneuve trying to really adapt this seemingly impossible book that everyone says. And I did follow it. However, there's so much denseness, so much world building, so many hierarchies of Game of Thrones, multiple seasons that we sort of all try to be packed into this 2.5 hours or so. It's a lot. It's a lot. So at one point, yes, it's a massively long sci-fi, just lubed up. Boo! It's going to town. You're going to put in this world, spaceships, beautiful aesthetics and characters, wonderful actors. So in that regard, it's like, yeah, but there's two problems. There is no ending. This is part one, and it's a total letdown of an ending for me, at least it was, because you're like, all right, what's it going to go? And you're worried because I'm sitting there, I'm like, there's no chance in hell audiences are going to see this in droves to justify paying part two for this. It is such a niche sci-fi experience that, I hope you guys see it. I'd like to see more. I'd like to encourage smarter, big sci-fi spectacles like this. Absolutely. But I just don't think the general mass audience is going to connect or want to see more of this world or even go in the first place. On top of that, God, there's so much sand. It's so much sand. The other sort of comparison I can think of is Lord of the Rings, right? As a world-building sci-fi just experience. You're in Middle Earth, but you have so many different characters and creatures, and New Zealand, gorgeous. I mean, there's just so many times you can walk and lift up the sand and the spice. And then sometimes they go underground to some of these buildings, and you're like, okay, interesting, but a lot of just stone, sterile type of stuff, and they're in the same suits, and ultimately, I don't know. The sand becomes very taxing. I don't want to be there. I don't think anyone wants to be there. These nomads who have learned to live in the sand. You're just like, how? Okay, I guess I'll buy it. This movie and Dune in itself. If you're unfamiliar with the books, and I know a lot of you probably are because you're watching this review because you're interested. The movie itself, like how to explain the basic plot, is very Game of Thrones-esque in that there's a bunch of like different houses. House of what is it? I don't even remember the names. That's how memorable this was. Astraios, Street. I just watched 2.5 hours. I can't remember the guy's Oscar Isaac's last name. That's how memorable this was for me. It was beautiful, but there's so much they try to download into your brain if you're not familiar with Dune that be prepared for like paying attention and getting this lesson in. Because Oscar Isaac's family sort of leads this house, and then there's this emperor who's like the evil I still don't understand. There's an evil emperor who's in charge of the Dune spice planet, but then leaves. And then but then they deem that the house, Oscar Isaac's house, must come take over and then lead the charge to basically mine this spice on the desert. The spice sort of does everything. It allows you to be like do space travel. It's everyone who wants it. It's the most valuable commodity in the entire galaxy, universe, whatever. And so they are brought in, and we learn that everybody who comes and sort of mans this spice is always sort of betrayed or killed. But Oscar Isaac's plan is to try to befriend the natives there. These people who live, there's Javier Bardem as one of them, who live, and Zendaya, they live in the desert. They have managed to sort of build suits that absorb and take their sweat, so that way they can always be drinking and recycling the water. It's a lot of sci-fi stuff, and I bought it. It was cool, and that's so he wants to sort of see can he team up with these to finally go against the Emperor. And so the Emperor, Stellan Skarsgård, and this weird flying blob-like character. I never understood the motivations or understanding. And then you have witches who can like do spells. and can mind read and then know the future. And then all packed in the middle of it all is Timothée Chalamet, our beautiful boy. Oh, look at that boy. He's so beautiful. He's in the middle of all of the fantasy, the politics, all of it. Is he a chosen one? That's sort of what the plot of this whole movie is. And so, look, there's a lot to unpack in this film, and I was invested. I liked it, but as you can tell, it was hard to remember it all. I wasn't that invested. Would I watch part 2? Sure. But would I wish they'd get off the sand planet and go somewhere else, like in Star Wars? Like, you can only stay on Tatooine for so long. It's nice when they go up into space and do some other stuff, too. Yeah, there's some cool, like, sandworms and stuff, and, you know, there's stuff happens. There's some exciting scenes. Jason Momoa kicks some serious butt. I like the cast. I do like the cast. The cast doesn't all good. Jason Momoa is probably the standout star for me in this one, where I was surprised I was invested with him a lot. Timothée Chalamet's okay. Javier Bardem gets some stuff to do. He was an interesting character when he shows up. Rebecca Ferguson. I like her from Mission Impossible and Greatest Showman. She's fine. Josh Brolin has a interesting supporting role, and Oscar Isaac's fine. Like it's all good. I don't dislike it. Am I so blown away that no? I'm impressed and I respect it. And I want to see more. And as a cinema experience, yes, I'm going to give it a thumbs up, because we don't get a lot of sort of movies like this. It's not really original. It's a book that's been mined to death. They've taken the spice out of this book and put it into Star Wars and every other thing. Dune sort of as one of those things that we've seen it in so much other movies moving forward. That's clear. There's a lot of borrowing clearly from this universe. So again, I give it respect. But this is literally like Lord of the Rings, more Game of Thrones in sand. It's a deep, dense sci-fi story, so be prepared for that. If you're a fan of the source material, I suspect you'll appreciate some of the choices he makes, from judging on what I talked about people who watched it. But it's, again, the best word I can think of is dense. There's a lot happening, and the biggest problem is, so yes, you're either into this, this long, lubed up job that they're doing on you for the sci-fi aspect. You're either in, right, and you get invested, and you're like, yes, inject all this science fiction into my veins. But then you got a lot of sand in it with it, and you're not going to complete yourself. It's not going to be finished at the end. It's going to end with it's only going to be just the beginning. And you're like, oh my God, wait, what? So I just sat there through all this and I didn't even get an ending? It's a bummer. It's a bummer of an ending. But they do tell you, they don't tell you in the marketing, but they tell you in the movie starts, Dune, Part 1. This is clearly always intended to be Part 2. And I'd be a lot more inclined to see it and be more excited if I knew Warner Brothers was already committed and shooting Part 2. You would feel a little bit more confident. So I'm frustrated with Warner Brothers for doing this. Personally, it's maybe unpopular, I would have made this an HBO series. At this stage of the game, I know it's hard to say because this was supposed to be a big theatrical event and everything sort of delayed this, and that's a bummer. But I think even then, with the world working normally, I think this would have been a really hard sell to work in the movies. Blade Runner 2049 did not do that well. I don't see this doing that well. I hope I'm wrong. And I hope I'm not trying to sway anybody. Everyone should see this in theaters. It's a big cinematic opus. Denis Villeneuve is so on top of his game. I'm a fan of him. Sicario, Prisoners, Arrival, even Blade Runner 2049. Some people were torn on that. I really enjoyed it. I think I liked it better than the original. So I really appreciate him as a director. I'm excited to keep seeing what he wants to make. This guy is one of the best that we got making movies. But he really likes dense material, and this is one of those where it's a lot going on. There's flashbacks, dreams, what's happening, what's real. There's a lot of stuff that you have to sort of sort out while still learning the world. And so the denseness of it can probably bring down some audience members. It didn't really bring me down, but it did confuse me at times, and it was hard for me to remember everything given how much he's trying to which some would, watch it again, learn it again, right? Watch it a few times. Would I watch it again? I may watch it again. There's a lot going in there, and that's, I think, part of what he's going for, is to give you enough to get invested, to learn these characters, but then go back and trying to learn it again. And it's beautiful enough that I may, and then right before Part 2, I may want to watch Part 1 again to get invested if they make Part 2. But honestly, I think this would have worked even better as an HBO series, week to week, build up, have it grow. The movie almost feels like there would have been perfect chapter endings to sort of make this a big, long 10-episode miniseries. He could have stretched some things out probably that way, and we would have gotten more of the denseness. I think selling this as a 2-part movie was a mistake. But we'll see if I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong. I would love to support movies like this. I think we should support movies like this. However, It's a lot of Timothy Chalamet looking cute. So you got to, hopefully the fans of him show up in droves and watch it multiple times, like Leonardo DiCaprio Titanic style. And it's a lot of cool visuals, sci-fi, Dave Bautista in cool armor with a bunch of ships showing up again to the sand. There's a lot going on here, but there's a lot of walking around the desert too. A lot of figuring all that stuff out. And look, there's some twists and turns and interesting action set pieces that ultimately did invest me. I was engaged. I'm interested to see more. Am I so blown away that I'm now like a Dune super fan? No. Even the worms, I'm just like, how does that make sense? It's like Tremors, but so much bigger. How would it not? How would you live there? I mean, they explain it in detail, but there's just still a lot of questions when your biggest cool creature is just a big sandworm that just keeps floating around. You can't walk in the desert, and everyone lives in the desert. It's just, there's a lot of questions. Overall, I am going to recommend this movie, but I'm going to stand by my take of, is it a good or bad thing? Yeah, it's a lot of sand. Sand in a job like this is not a good thing. I'm not stupid. I'm not weird. And the never ending is not good either. However, it is, to the positive, there's a long sci-fi motion happening for you. Just, I guess, bring some moisturizer while you're watching. Be prepared is what I'm trying to advise you on Dune. I hope we get a part 2. I would not be surprised if we don't get a part 2, sadly. Seeing especially how Bond just did this past weekend, an adult grown-up movie that everyone's just complaining about. Oh, I think I want to do a rant about that one too. Oh my God, I've seen multiple people now complain. Why are we... Oh, the white say, oh my God, why is it about race? Anyway, I'll say that for later. I want to talk about Bond. I hope you guys have seen Bond. I'm going to spoil and talk about Bond soon. If you haven't seen No Time to Die, go see that one. Stay tuned for more discussion here and lots more here on Movie World. Yes, Popcorn Planets for news. I know we talked movies there, but now we're talking movies here, so hit the bell for all alerts and join me. Those of you complaining, saying, Andy, why aren't you talking about movies? I'm here talking about movies. Where are you? Come watch. Come support. We're going to build a community here, too. I'm allowed to have 2 communities. Fans support their creators in doing what they want to do. So I hope you'll support this venture here. Thank you so much for your support. Stay tuned for more here on Movie World.